A very good morning to you and welcome back to the recap, where we'll take all the major stories shaking Nigeria, Africa and the global conversation and then break them down the way it actually makes sense to you and I. But then trust us to bring you your week immediately after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Facebook wasn't the first thing I built. I also built chat systems and games, study tools and music players, and I'm not alone. J.K. Rowling got rejected 12 times before she finally wrote and published Harry Potter. I don't know how to build a dam. I don't know how to get 1 million people involved in anything. Well, let me tell you a secret. No one does when they begin. Ideas don't come out fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started.
All right, so welcome back from that quick break. Now, let's get into the week. So Nigeria started the week with a major security announcement. When I mean major, I mean one of the strongest directives we've seen from the presidency over the years. President Bola Ahmed TINUBU has declared a nationwide security emergency, saying the rise in kidnappings and violent attacks has reached a point where business as usual simply can't continue. Now, here is the breakdown. The police have been ordered to recruit 20,000 new officers, taking the total new intake to 50,000. And then talk about NYSC camps. They are now approved as temporary training centers. So you have to expect core members to start sharing space with new police recruits. Now, officers withdrawn from VIP escorts will undergo crash retraining and then be deployed to frontline areas. And then talk about it is the first time in a while when the DSS has been directed to deploy trained forest guards, especially to flush out bandits and hiding deep in forest zones. The president also praised the rescue of the schoolgirls in KEBBI and worshippers in Kwara State. But he also made it clear that the country is not out of woods. And then he pushed the legal framework for state police, asked states to rethink boarding schools in remote areas, and then urged headers to, embrace ranching. And then this wasn't just a statement, I must say, it was a reset button. But now we'll move from national security to a painful moment in entertainment. Nollywood lost an actor and content creator, ODIRA. It will be this week. And the entire industry has been in shock. He passed away in South Africa after what reports described as a sudden hypertensive episode. And this is what really makes the story more heartbreaking. The fact that hours before, he was seen on video dancing and at a nightclub. There was no sign of any distress. And then trusts his colleagues and fans. They've been posting tributes non-stop, remembering his energy, his joy, and the humor he brought to his roles in Nollywood. Now, his passing has also reignited conversations about high blood pressure awareness, especially among young creatives constantly under pressure. So, it is a tough loss for Nollywood. But then, may his soul rest in peace. Let's now move to the Northwest, where we finally got a bit of good news in what has been a terrifying few days in Nigeria. The 24 schoolgirls abducted in KEBBI State have regained their freedom. After a week of search operations, the girls were safely recovered. Their families, the state, and the entire country exhaled at least for a moment. But here's the reality. While this was happening, 38 worshippers were kidnapped during a church service in Kwara State, and then over 300 students and teachers were taken from Catholic school in Niger State. So yes, there is no doubt that KEBBI State brought a relief, but it also reminds us that the wider crisis is still unfolding. So Nigerians are still asking the same question: when will our schools, especially the ones in rural areas, finally be safe? Now, to one of the most heartbreaking stories of this week. The Anglican Diocese of Kaduna has announced the death of Venerable EDWIN ACHI. who is the priest of the church. Now, the priest was kidnapped in October. Back in October, along with his wife and daughter. The diocese described him as a humble, devoted, and deeply loved. And you can even feel the pain in their message. But the most painful part is that his wife and daughter are still in captivity. In its honor, the diocese has cancelled its major 2025 event titled Stand Up for Jesus. Another sad detail: ACHI's family had just moved into the community when bandits attacked their home, and they've barely settled in before the tragedy hits. Now, the kidnappers later demanded 600 million. It was originally from Delta State, so you can imagine how two states are grieving the loss of a man who gave so much yet suffered deeply. Now, stories like this remind you that insecurity isn't just about statistics, it is about families. Let's now go international, because this one had Nigerians glued to the screen. It had Nigerians glued to updates. The former Nigerian president, Goodluck Jonathan, found himself in the middle of a military coup in Guinea-Bissau this week. And then he was there on an official AU-ECOWAS observer mission. Then when soldiers suddenly seized power, they shut borders and suspended the electoral process in Abuja. Back in Abuja now, the House of Representatives had to pause its regular discussions to raise an urgent motion about his safety. And there was lawmakers emphasizing that Jonathan wasn't just on a private visit, he was on official duty, the same role he has carried out across multiple countries for years. So they demanded immediate diplomatic action, and it worked. So Jonathan has successfully been evacuated and returned to Abuja on Thursday night. He stepped off a Guinea-Bissau government aircraft to a warm welcome from officials and supporters. So now the government later confirmed that he was safe and had been moved out soon as diplomatic channels opened. So it was indeed a tense situation, but thankfully it ended without harm. So there you go. That is your week. You see how we've had a mix of heavy moments, national decision, painful losses, and a reminder of just how fast things can shift in Africa and beyond. So as always, what we do here is to break things down so you don't just hear the news, you understand it. You understand what it means to you, your community, and the country. Until next time, do not forget to follow us across all social media platforms at Idea TV. And I would also like to hear from you on the comment section. Which of these stories sits out for you? Which of these stories hits you the most? I am Chidera Okere. Thank you for watching.